Welcome back to Movies Recapped. Today I will show you a biographical crime dramedy film from 2017, called Molly's Game. Warning: spoilers ahead. Watch out and enjoy. This is a true story about an Olympic hopeful named Molly Bloom. Molly is a world-class mogul skier, ranked third in North America, and on track to qualify to compete in the 2002 Winter Olympics. She spends hours upon hours working with the best trainers she can find, all under the guide of her proud and pushy father. When she was 12, Molly experienced some severe back pain while practicing. It turns out she had a form of scoliosis that took a 7-hour surgery to correct. Her doctors warned that she may not ski again, and if she did, it definitely wouldn't be mogul. Within a year and a half, she was doing just that. By the time she reached the age of 20, she earned a spot on the US ski team, just one step away from the Olympics. She has her whole life planned: get to the Olympics, beat the Swiss and the Austrians, then go to law school, and finally set up a foundation to seed entrepreneurial women. During her qualifying run though, she is severely injured in a freak accident that results in the end of her skiing career. 12 years later, Molly is living in Los Angeles with the FBI banging on her door. She's wanted for running an illegal gambling ring. Here's how she got there. After her accident, Molly decided to take a year off before attending law school. She moved to LA so that she could get away from her past and recover from losing her dream. Someone she knew from the ski team lived there and agreed to let her sleep on their couch for a while until she got her feet under her. She soon gets a job as a bottle service waitress at a popular nightclub where she works 1 day a week. She also gets an office job for a man named Dean, who is a regular at the club she works at. He's an unsuccessful, and a bit rude real estate developer in desperate need of an office manager. She soon gets put in charge of running his underground poker games that are held at a bar called the Cobra Lounge. Molly learns that Dean is much more than he seems. These secret poker games are attended by some of the richest and most famous people she's ever heard of. From movie stars to athletes to business titans, all buy into the game with $10,000. At the end of the night, she makes thousands of dollars in tips alone, and senses that this is going to last a lot longer than the year she initially planned on spending in LA. Flash forward to 2014 and Molly is trying to find a lawyer to represent her. It is then that she meets Charlie Jaffe, an expensive criminal defendant with a strict moral code. He agrees to help with the initial arrangement, but agrees to nothing else, citing the fact that she published a book about her experiences with the mob and the poker games. Back in 2002, Molly doesn't know anything about poker at first. Worried that the game might suddenly end, she quickly teaches herself about the game so that she can become more appealing to the players and earn as much money and tips as possible. In particular, Molly was eager to get in the good graces of the most successful player, a film star that she only refers to as Player X. She tries to do this by bringing new players. She also learns about all sorts of industries by becoming a fly on the poker player's wall and just listening. With her new influx of cash, Molly is able to move off of her friend's couch and into an apartment of her own. She is also able to afford a new car, and decides to push law school off for a few more years. Why not keep making guaranteed money? At her first hearing in 2014, Charlie, once again, makes it clear that he is just there for the arrangement and that he is not her counsel. Though he does give her some advice on how to proceed after this first hearing, and urges her to give the court the real identities of who she wrote about in her book. Once in the courtroom though, Charlie decides to take Molly on as a client after he learns that she protected the innocent people that were affected by her games. After 3 years of running the games, Molly saved up $58,000, and had made herself integral to the game. Dean recognizes this and tries to control her and threatens to fire her from both the office and the game. Rather than waiting for him to act on his threats, Molly decides to start running her own games. She rents a penthouse at a hotel, hires a staff to help out, and curates a luxurious space for her clients. Thankfully, she has all of this set up and ready by the time Dean does fire her. She begins to spread the word about the new game, and many of Dean's players, including Player X, leave his game for Molly's. She refuses to become romantically or sexually involved with any of the players or workers, and refuses to let any of the players buy one of her employees for the night. In another effort to keep the game out of trouble, Molly visits a lawyer. He tells her that as long as she isn't taking a cut of the pot and she kept correctly filing taxes for the company and her employees, then it was all above board. He does warn her, though, to be sure she doesn't break the law while she's breaking the law. This doesn't give her much confidence that what she's doing really is okay, but doesn't stop her either. With the increase of her success, Player X pressures Molly to up the stakes to the game. She knows that this will push some of her current players out, and so goes looking for new, richer, clients to take their place. One of these new players was a former world poker champion. Another is a notoriously bad player nicknamed Bad Brad Marion. He uses the game as a way to get new clients for his business outside of the game, so while he may not have ever won a hand, he did still make plenty of money off the table. One night, a skilled and conservative player named Harlan Eustace joins Molly's game and ends up losing a hand to Bad Brad. This loss angers him and makes him act erratic. He suffers major losses and bets way more than he can actually pay for. Molly sends him off with the promise that he will go home, make amends with his wife, and then come back the next day to talk about his debts. That doesn't happen. Instead, he brings her a check for the $1.2 million that he owed her. It turns out that Player X, who enjoys ruining lives more than he does poker itself, funded Harlan to keep him in the game. Molly chides Player X for his unethical behavior and he decides to move back to Dean's game, taking the other players with him. After completely losing her game, Molly decides to leave LA and move to New York. She knew the game was only a temporary thing, but she always thought that it would end on her terms. She takes her skills east and builds a new network in order to start a new game. She raises her stakes from what she was running in Los Angeles in an attempt to make more noise than before and bring in higher paying clients. At the end of her first year, her business, which she was still paying taxes on and reporting to the IRS, brought in more than $4 million. She insists that the only money she was personally making was from tips. In addition to her high roller game, Molly runs several smaller games a week. Despite this huge level of success, she is afraid that she won't be able to cover her losses when certain players can't pay. Her dealer, B, convinces her that she needs to start taking a percentage of the larger pots. This is a criminal action that officially made her game illegal, but it did allow her to make up for any potential losses. One night, one of her players can't pay the $80,000 that he lost. In order to boost her own game, Molly offers to forgive him if he can bring in some players from another game in the city. That game is run by the Russian mob, something Molly claims to have been unaware of. The new players revitalize both her and the game, but also bring in more illegal activities, and are taking more money out of the pot. She becomes more and more reliant on drugs as the games take their toll on her. Back in LA, Bad Brad, as it turns out, isn't running a real business. He tells the courts that his money issues were not helped by an underground poker game run by Molly. She is investigated by local authorities, and pressured to reveal her other players. She acknowledges the 4 that Brad already gave up, but does not reveal any other names. This investigation is how she gets to be on the FBI's radar. It is around this time that she is approached by some members of the Italian mafia. They aren't interested in playing in her game, but offer their protective services to protect her and get her money from her non-paying players. When she declines their offer, she is assaulted in her home. She's held at gunpoint and they threaten her mother's life. She recovers alone and makes a plan to earn the money she's owed, and then get out. She reads in the paper that there was a massive raid against the mobsters. As she is preparing to go back to her poker games after a break for the holidays, her game is raided by the FBI. It is thanks to one of her players, Douglas Downey, who informed them about her activities. Her belongings are seized by the feds, and she flees from New York to move home to live with her mom in Colorado. 2 years after this happens, Molly has moved out of her mother's house and published a book about her past. In it, she doesn't name any names that weren't already named in Bad Brad's indictment. Then, the FBI come knocking and Molly is charged with being involved with illegal gambling and having mafia connections. This is when she meets Charlie, who grows to like and believe her. While she's in New York waiting for her trial to continue, her father finds her. The two haven't reconciled since their falling out after her injury. After all this time, he finally admits to her that he was harder on her than he was her brothers and that he was relentless with her. Back in Charlie's office, he tells her that he doesn't think what she did was bad enough to justify the prison sentence that she is being charged with. He is able to negotiate with the prosecuting lawyers to give her no sentence, complete immunity, and for her seized assets to be returned. In exchange, she has to give up all of her digital records from the past decade surrounding the games. However, this would mean that all of her clients would be exposed and she declines the offer. She has an immense amount of guilt surrounding the outcome of several of her former players, some being dead and some being in jail. She walks into the courtroom and pleads guilty. After her guilty plea, the judge asks to speak with the prosecutors. He decides that Molly's crimes were not serious. He gives her 200 hours of community service, a year of probation, and a fine of $200,000. Everyone is shocked by this, none more so than Molly. To further try to reconcile with her, Molly's dad takes her, their family, and Charlie out to dinner. She says she doesn't know what she'll do next, but she's sure it will be big. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.